All right, so welcome back to the project. I've got it down off the jack stands and back onto the roll around dolly. I'm done for now, moving around underneath the car until I get it up on the lift. I still want to make some shielding for those fuel lines and the brake lines, but I'm going to leave that till I can get it on the lift and get it up in the air. Any rate, so far I've got both doors back on the car. I've got the latches installed, so that's good to go. I had to really get it down on the dolly and get it moved away from the wall. I kind of boxed myself in working over here in this corner. I got this whole shop in over here because of a bunch of things. First of all, I had to move those shelves away from this wall to get the lift in. Now, basically, I had this whole area cluttered up with the dollies that the doors were on. I had the wiring harnesses spread out all over the floor so I could find different plugs and things. So slowly but surely, I'm getting stuff off the shelves and stuff off the floor. I've broken down the other couple of dollies, got them out of the way, so I've got a little more room here to move around, but still not a lot. Yeah, I usually have the cars set up in this area in a nice open area so I can work around them comfortably, but I seem to have got myself pinned in with this one. Not a lot of forward thinking on my part. At any rate, I've got this one set up in for the front coilovers. Got the coilovers assembled. I've got the new upper A-frame in, and you can see I media blasted and primed and painted this upper A-frame bracket that holds everything together. The reason I'm doing this right now is just to get, like I said, stuff on the car, and because the engine's coming in from the bottom with the lower suspension attached to the cradle over there, it's just as well that I get everything assembled ahead of time. So that's where I'm at right now. There's just so many things that I can do right now that I'm getting distracted because stuff's ready to go back on the car. At any rate, I've got another coilover bracket to set up with the bracket that goes in here and all of that good stuff. And I'll go on from here. Okay, spent the last day and a half doing a lot of cleanup, and not nearly all the cleanup I need to do, but starting to clear out a little bit here. Spent a little time last day getting this off the pallet. I was going to put it on the engine cradle, but when I took the motor mounts out and went to get that all together, I found out that the bolts that I had purchased, the new bolts I should say, that I purchased for the motor mounts were the wrong ones. So I had to reorder those, and so that kind of put a little damper on my party. Anyway, I decided to go ahead and transfer the engine over to this cradle, that I built so that I could move this thing into position under the car when the car's on the lift. Also, it gives me the ability to reach up and through bolt. I've made sure to try and put everything in a position where I can get to the transmission mounts, and then once the cradle's in, I'll be cleared to be able to bolt up the cradle to the engine bay. So, it's not the funnest part of the job, but it has to be done. So at least that part of it's out of the way. And when I get ready to put the motor in, everything's set up and ready to go. Anyway, moving on to the next thing. All right, continuing to piddle around here, pick up pieces, refurbish pieces, that type of thing. Let me see here. I got this stuff is really chintzy. Let me tell you, plasticky pieces. Ended up just all the hinges and everything were broken on this thing. I don't need an ashtray, so I ended up just gluing that in place. I gotta paint it the same color as this now. But anyway, there's the console in. This thing's a real treat. Again, real cheap. I hope it don't rattle too much. got a bit of glass in. I finally got that piece of glass in, this piece of trim. So that's in. Just pulling stuff out of boxes. Has been sitting here for almost a year, since before I started this project. Got this window trim in here. I had to buff out the top of the door before I could put the trim on. We'll have to do the other side too. I had to buff the top over here also. It was a little rough, but that's on there now. You know, just little stuff like that. Just keep rolling on it. But anyway, that's where I'm at now. Okay, so I got my new old stock motor mount bolts in and torqued. So everything's set up here on the cross member to plunk underneath the motor and hopefully bolt it to the motor. So while I made that nifty dolly to carry the engine over here, I had a very difficult time getting it centered up on here with the engine hoist, because the tapered legs ran into the dolly before I got in close enough to get to the nice balance point for jacking this thing up. So what I ended up doing was I ended up using this chain hoist that I normally lift the bodies with, just to pick it up a little ways and shuffle that dolly under there. But I know I'm not going to be able to get the engine hoist back under there in order to lift this. But I certainly don't want to trust lifting the engine as high as I have to with that pick point. So I've added these two vertical double 2x4s to support underneath that that truss over there, so that I don't get any deflection. It's you know, it was plenty strong for the last 4 or 5 projects to pick the entire body of a car up, but I don't think that an engine and transmission is gonna hold with that beam up there. So in order to ensure that that's not an issue, I've got these verticals 2x4s doubled up underneath the beam, take the load, shorten that span. It doesn't have to lift it for very long, but it should be fine. We shall see, or else the whole building looks going to come down on me. Anyway, back to work. All right, so I got the motor mounts loosely on there. The bolts that came with the motor were not the factory type setup, so I just ordered some of those, the ones that go to the block itself. I just took this as they were bolted through this little shipping piece there, but they were not actually the style that you'd want to put on there. They were just some general hardware with some locking, with some washers and some lock nuts. So I'm going to get the OE stuff and replace it with the right stuff. I'm the kind of guy who doesn't need to take chances because I'm not that smart. So I'm just going to go ahead and get the right stuff. Anyway, that was a big problem off my mind. I didn't know how that all was going to go. It's sitting down on the cross member now, on the dolly itself, so that once I get those bolts in and everything torqued up under there, then I'll be able to either swing it into the location over here when it comes time to drop the car down onto it. So anyway, what's the old saying? I'd rather be lucky than smart. Well, I've had a lot of luck lately. When you're trying to move a car and your heavy-duty dolly wheel just decides to disintegrate. Oh, good times. Anyway, one more job. Crisis averted. Luckily, I had the big giant wheel in stock. Anyway, it pays to be a semi-hoarder. You know what I mean? Don't throw everything away. Okay, got the passenger door caught up to the driver's side door now. You know, got the handles in, the key, lock. This top strip, I got this polished out on the top side over here, all the way down the top of the door. And got some glass in this side over here also. I've got the rubber door seal on there. It's hardly got any weight in this door yet because it needs the glass and all the other jazz that goes in here, but yeah, it's nice to get a nice solid rubber seal on there. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of wind noise somewhere because these cars had to have these blowout clips up at the top, keep the windows from blowing out. But anyway, the most you can do is do what you can with what's available, and that's what I got going on here. So just keep moving on with all the little details. Okay, just refurbishing some more bits and bobs. This is the trim for the rain gutter, and this is the trim for the A pillar, and also the rain gutter on the that portion. And these are the B pillar trims over here. So I'm just basically cleaning off all of the gunk and giving them a light media blast, and then hitting them with a zinc chrome 8 self-etching primer, which is great. Hangs to aluminum perfectly. It was designed to go on aircraft aluminum bodies. Anyway, the other thing I'm doing a little bit at a time here is trying to recover my headliner. So this thing was really brittle, about ready to just blow away into crumbs. It was molded out of some kind of a thin styrofoam here, and then they just put the fabric on it, and then, you know, that was it. So in order to maintain the shape, I didn't feel like making all of this out of metal. So I went ahead and first thing I did was just went over it with a layer of fiberglass resin to kind of stiffen up and block the fabric that you know, was covering it, just kind of make it a little bit more rigid. And then I went over it and laid a layer of this fiberglass cloth, just and this is the second layer of resin that I'm putting on it right now to try and firm it up, give me something that I can work with, and, you know, I have a nice decent base that's, you know, it's rigid now. It's not going to crumble into crumbs, which was threatening to do, because that backer, like I said, it's pretty yeah, you know, it's been cooking under that roof for 40 years out in the sun, in the Alabama sun. Anyway, that's what I'm about doing here, getting a little recovery, and like I said, going through my trim and seeing if I could decipher how it all goes back in what order, so I don't install something first that doesn't belong first, and then have to uninstall it because everything's on little tiny plastic clips that just want to blow away. Anyway, that's where I'm at. Okay, so I'm going to try and tackle this, which I keep putting off, which is to try and locate these two. They're tucked down in there. These are off of the old harness. These two sensors here that turn the lights on at dusk. And there's the holder that they come up through. So it's a little bit tricky because the only thing that protrudes up through the dash is this last little bit right here. So these are two different diameter holes based on this, not these holes. So I have to first locate this, and then I have to find the center and then drill these holes out so that this will work. In this top panel here, which you're not seeing right now because it's not in place, first thing I have to do is, you can see them down in there, I have to make a pattern here for where the window is that I have to operate in. In other words, this little hole here is where exactly I have to go with that little receiver. So what I've done here is I've got that located right there. I'm going to fold this back, and then I'll put the panel in, and I'll mark it, and then it'll give me an idea where I can start. All right, with the panel dropped in, screwed down, flip this over, and this gives me an idea where my operational space is to put that little piece. It should drop in that little hole right there. Anyway, I'll mark that out and get to work on that. All right, with these mocked up in here and kind of an approximation as to where it's got to sit in this area, I went ahead. These are kind of nifty to have. You get these at any kind of art supply store. They're basically Circle Master templates. I've got a whole bunch of them, different sizes, but, you know, they can determine, like right now, I'm looking at this thing here, and it's like I need to make the opening as big as, I was just going to allow these to protrude through, but this one actually is flush. So that tells me that originally this was exposed, this whole tray. So it's a circle on the end, a circle on the end, and then two straight lines. and they're both centered on the little light fixtures themselves. So what I did was I went ahead and I matched up the proper circle that would, well, that's not the one, but basically the right size, oriented it based, you can see the centering hash marks there, top, bottom, tick marks, and centered that up, and got my centering marks between the two light bulbs here. And based on, again, these, you can slip these over any size that, you know, the size that fits over it. That's not it, but you can see what I mean. I'll give you the center of the light bulb and these hash marks right here. And now I'll just have to connect the dots over here, basically. Connect these two circles, and then that oval shape will be my, my cutout. And then this hopefully will mount on the bottom side of that. And it'll be just nifty and it'll all go fine. Anyway, moving along. All right, so I've got this epoxied in here now, and I've got this T21 that I use for a lot of this stuff. I've got that over the front edge here where I just had everything tack welded. I didn't want to weld it up solid because or bond to it, because that'll all show through if it cracks. So went ahead and put epoxy on there. Didn't want to weld it, didn't want to add a lot of heat and warp it all up. So yeah, I'll probably need that dry for about 24 hours before I go buffing that down. And at least I got to it after talking about it for so long. Anyway, moving on. Okay, some more inch worm progress. Got the mirrors on. Got this top belt molding on over here. Got the glass in. Got these outer trim pieces cleaned up, repainted, popped in over here. This was a real bear figuring out how to get this molding in, but I finally got a technique, which I'm glad they've got different ways of putting it in today. For modern cars, it's a whole lot easier to put seals in compared to trying to fish this in and get it to go into a C channel and get it to all comply and be the right length to play out to the end, because it fastens both at the front and at the rear. Excuse me, the rear is over there from the rear and the front. And so anyway, it comes together pretty good once you start putting the trim on there. It starts to look pretty neat. Anyway, moving forward. Okay, I just got done body working this panel for the top of the dash. Finish out the dashboard and spraying it with some texture paint. And hopefully I'll get some color on it later today when this all gets a little solid. I'm also, after the second coat of resin, I went ahead and put a skim coat of Bondo down just to fill in all the obvious irregularities. And that should be good enough since the headliner material has a foam backer on it. It should absorb any small defects in the shape of this thing. At any rate, trying to work things simultaneously and not to get too screwed up while I'm doing that. It's kind of hard to do. I'm not a great multitasker. I like to go straight ahead with a project, but stuff like this, you got to dodge in and out, do what you can in order to keep rolling. And that's what I'm doing. All right, just working on this defroster grill, getting it painted up, and I'm ready to go into the top of the dash. One of the things I wanted to do before I did that, before I installed it, was to put this stainless steel screen in here, basically, so nothing gets accidentally dropped down into the ducts. Anyway, thought I'd show you that. It's just cut closely and then forced in there, and it'll get held into place by the ducts themselves. Hopefully it won't interfere with the ducts. Shouldn't. It's right up against the back of the grill. We shall see, though. See if I have to alter it in some way. Anyway. All right. Give it a light. This is the headliner. I give it a little light coat of Bondo just to fill in these irregularities after I sanded down the second coat of fiberglass resin. So it's all filled in. It's all sanded up. I'm ready to contact the material down to it. Usually what I do is when I'm doing an area this large is I'll kind of lay the material over, and then run it half back and do half at a time. I'll spray this and spray this part here and spray that part there, and then stick that down, then lift the other side and flip it over and do the second half. Anyway, that's what I'm up to now. All right, so this is what the dash transition is looking like completed. I've got my 2 little sensors in there up through that little pocket. Got the defroster grill in, that went in okay. The screen didn't interfere or anything like that. I almost forgot. Was thinking about originally covering this with vinyl, but then I didn't leave enough room to do that. So in order to keep this from buzzing, hopefully, I put some double stick tape that's about 1/16 of an inch thick under this front edge, but I didn't peel the backer off it. So that it's going to just act like a cushion in case I have to take this back off for any reason. This is just sitting on a foam front edge. Anyway, that's what it's looking like. I'm not too unhappy with that. I was worried about how that was all going to look when it all came together, but seems to work out okay. Anyway, back to the headliner. Okay, that's covered. It's a bit tricky because it has to be kind of bunched up in those corners. But anyway, it's on there, and next I have to figure out how to install it up in the top there without it falling on my head. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so that's what it's looking like with the headliner up inside and some of the trim installed. I still have fooling around with that last piece of trim on the back there, and then I've got to engineer the dome light situation and the third tail light over there. I located it with these stubs that I cut off of the sun visors out of the Buick. It's sitting out there in the lean-to. So that helped me get this right back in the exact position it was in. So I basically took and sawed off the actual visor itself just so I could get this little fixture to hold it into place. And once I got that held into place like that, I had several other clamps that were holding up the back edge. It was a little easier to locate that and make sure it was actually in the right position, because it's kind of hard to tell. At any rate, that's going to do it for this week. Lots of little knickknacks still to come. And at any rate, I appreciate everybody that's been watching all along. And I will see you on the next one.